the session. So if you have to drop off, I will send everybody a recording afterwards, so you won't miss anything. In the bottom right-hand corner, you should have a chat window. So feel free to ask questions as we go. I've also left quite a bit of time at the end to answer any questions that people might have. So if you want to know how to apply any of the things that we talked about, please put it in the chat box and we'll go through it. Maybe you've got a particular situation that you want to cover. And if you feel that it needs a bit more detail, I'd be happy to have a one-to-one call. So when I email you the recording, just let me know and I'll book something in. So today we are going to be talking about increasing your brand reach, how to reach the right target audience, sustaining registrations, building a strong brand image, and then promoting any innovations and achievements that you have as a school, nursery, exam board, digital education company, whatever it might be within the education sector. So everything we talk about will be focused at the education sector. I know that it's a particularly difficult time for people. Sadly, I've had to say that for the last 4 years or so, but hopefully things will get a bit easier. But I think it's just worth noting that I've taken into consideration that you are restricted on time, and you're also very much restricted on budget. So there are lots of easy things that you can do to improve your marketing. I've aimed here to make sure that the things that I'm recommending are actually achievable with a limited budget and with the things that are going on in the world and the UK right now. There is quite a bit of detail in the slides, and that's so that you can go back to the recording, you can see exactly what was covered, especially the bits that are going to be relevant to you and the things that you're looking to improve in. But let's start off first of all by talking through increasing your brand reach. So the reason that I start with this as one of the top 5 things that I think is really important within marketing at the moment is because I feel a lot of clients that I speak to at the moment, they've created a bit of a bubble really in terms of their marketing. So if we take LinkedIn, for example, typically when you're marketing out on LinkedIn, you'll be pushed to people who are engaged with your content already, that perhaps follow you as a school or a company profile, or even your personal profile. And what you tend to see there is that you get a high level of engagement initially, as it's shown to those people, because they tend to be current members of staff, they tend to be alumni, and they tend to be current parents. And then it's shown to other people further outside of that initial brand reach. And there's a big drop off there. So I think that technology has almost kind of created this situation where brand reach feels initially like you're getting there and you're expanding that brand reach, but actually there's suddenly a big drop off. So started to look at the key ways that I think that people should be increasing their brand reach outside that initial bubble. So social media is incredibly important, but make sure that any content you have on there is varied and diverse. So a rule of thirds is best here. 1/3 needs to be around your sector, so maybe things changing within education. One thing needs to be around the marketing and the recruitment side of it. So for example, you might be looking to recruit through, again, LinkedIn, or you might be looking to market your school out, but make sure that in total, those 2 things combine to only make up 1/3 of your social media. And then 1/3 needs to be about interesting things, interesting content, value add that you can be providing people. I find that from a marketing point of view, the things that work really well at the moment are testimonials, they're videos, they're short clips, they're things that people can engage with, they're things that initially provide some kind of value to people. And then encourage people within that initial network to actually be sharing your content. So they might be students, they might be customers, they might be parents. Politely ask them to be sharing your content with their network as well. So just by doing that, even if you get 10% of those people that are in that initial bubble, you'll be reaching a new audience. Hopefully those people will start to follow you. Hopefully those people will be inside that bubble, so it'll grow a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger each time. Community involvement, I think, is really important. It is something that sadly I think a lot of people have moved away from. It's sometimes seen as a bit too traditional, but also I think people got out of the habit of doing this during the pandemic. So do host open days, do host, if you can, host virtual open days for people who are maybe a little bit further afield. And if you are able to, if you've got the time, from a thought leadership point of view, it'd be great to be hosting maybe workshops or seminars that are open to your target audience, so that you could be attracting people from further afield in terms of your brand reach, so that they can come to those things, they can learn something, but they can also be educated about your brand, what you do to help people. So topics around that could be about, for example, the benefit of sport on education. How does sport help with educating children about maths, for example, or it could be how do you help your child through exam stress. These topics that parents are going to be interested in, and you can gear these workshops, you can gear these open sessions to your target audience. Alumni is really useful. I think that what we have seen is we've seen quite a shift in terms of the marketplace, and constantly there are changes, but do consider how your alumni networks could benefit you. So for example, they might be in a position now to be sending their children to your school. They might be in a position even to be sending their children to your nursery. And if you are a business, an educational business, they could be purchasing your products, they could be engaging with your products, if they were, in this case, not necessarily alumni, but perhaps ex-employees. And then public relations, incredibly important. I think that building up some kind of relationship with local media is really useful. They're often looking for content that's really interesting and new. So you could talk about some things that you're doing. You could maybe talk about, if you're able to run those workshops, you could talk about some of those things, so it brings some value to their target audience. The more you focus on things that are value add, the greater chance you have of being put into local press for free. These are things that are a little bit more digital focused, but I think there are some really obvious things out there you can be doing in terms of pay-per-click and so on and so forth. But actually there's some things that are nice to have that are growing in importance for educational organizations. So we know that a quality website and SEO are really important. We have seen it where we started to work with an educational organization. They're getting lots of traffic, they're just not able to convert it into registrations or people inquiring, or customers, because they're targeting the wrong keywords, or because their website isn't user friendly. So the way you can fix this is to use something like Ask the Public, which is a website that you can see the number of times people have been searching for things, and give you recommendations for keywords that you could be targeting. And then you can be repeating those keywords in your content. And there's lots of different platforms that I'd be happy to talk through with anybody that was interested in going through them. There's lots of different platforms that will help you see your ranking. They'll even help you see your competitors' ranking and what kind of keywords they're targeting. We know that testimonials are growing in importance. We know that keeping reviews initially in one place is really important for educational organizations. So if you're going to go with Trustpilot, or say you're a nursery, you might go with Day Nurseries, you might go with one of the school publications if you're an independent school, or you might go with Google. Whatever it is, initially start collecting testimonials and reviews in one place, and then expand out. And distinct branding is really important. I think that not just in the style of your branding, but it's also very important that you understand your unique selling point, so that you can be branding yourself in a way that will be going outside of that initial bubble of people who know your reputation. So consider people who don't know who you are, or they don't know what you stand for, they don't know your values, and so on and so forth. Not only will that help you with your corporate brand, but it also help you with your employer brand. And then finally, do invest in digital advertising, utilize the capabilities to target suitable students, parents, customers, whoever it might be, and make sure that you're tracking that through that quality website that we've just talked about. So these are the main things that I would be doing to increase your brand reach. Does anybody have any questions at all about any of those points, or anything that they would like to discuss around that initial brand reach piece? Perfect. So the next bit, once you've actually increased your brand reach, you need to be making sure that the people that are being targeted with your marketing are the actual right target audience. There's no point in having thousands of people visiting your website if they're not suitable. Maybe they're not parents, maybe they're not financially able to afford your school fees or your nursery fees, maybe they're not learners, maybe they're not looking for your exams or your digital education qualifications, whatever it might be. So consider how that's going to differ for things like primary, secondary, sixth form. For sixth form, for example, you might be targeting at the moment students, but you might actually also be considering parents. You might be considering the different messaging that you have going on there, but look at where those people are spending their time online. Look at the platforms that are most suitable for them, and that will automatically help you narrow down a little bit your target audience. If you don't understand your target audience, there is no harm in asking people for feedback. There's no harm in running some focus groups with current parents, and maybe even prospective parents and students, whoever your target audience might be. Find out how they make their decisions, find out what they're interested in, find out where they would be looking for information about a school, a nursery, or an educational business. And then look online, see what other people are talking about, see what's getting traction. Don't mean to keep repeating LinkedIn, but LinkedIn can be a good place to find out what people are talking about. So on your homepage, you'll have news stories on the right-hand side. That will tell you how many people are reading about that particular subject. And it's a good idea to be able to find your content there so that you could be sharing things that you know are relevant for people. And then tailor your message. It's really important that you address your content to your target audience. So, for example, if you're an independent school, make it clear in your marketing that you're an independent school so that people can rule themselves in or out of engaging with that content, especially where you're paying per click, because you don't want to be paying for clicks of people who are completely unsuitable for it, and you also don't want to be wasting their time as well. So highlight things that are kind of unique for you, and once you've done that survey and focus group work to understand prospective parents, you could be tailoring your messaging to be focused on those areas. So for just put an example here, if you're looking for attracting people to your sixth form, for example, you might be talking a little bit more about career guidance and extracurricular clubs and the social life and the social elements of your school, for example. So do make sure everything is tailored. Use the appropriate channels. I think that there is still room for print. There's a lot of room for having a diverse media schedule in place. So do consider that. I think that it's very easy to look at maybe digital platforms and say, well, they're easier to track, we'll just go with them. But do consider a diverse range of media. It's not a problem if you consider it and it's not for you, but it is still worth being aware of. For students, for example, sadly, social media seems to constantly change in terms of what they're using. So keep on top of that. Perhaps even consider collaborating with educational brands that they might be using and influencers that they might be using that are education related. And I've seen a lot of work done by this by people like Duolingo and people like Study Smarter, both of which are educational apps. So look at the same sector, but people doing something slightly different, and see how they can collaborate with these people and see what they're achieving through it. And then focus on your online presence. We talked about your website, we talked about search engines, but make sure that you're using keywords. There's enough tools out there to be able to do that. As I said, I'm very happy to talk anybody through that. And once you have spoken to your target audience, make sure that your website answers the most common questions and concerns that they might have. I have seen people surveying people through the customer journey, and they say, oh, it's doing really well because it's improving your reputation as things go on. If that's the case, you need to be taking some of those things that you're talking to people about, and you need to be moving them into marketing. You need to be moving them into your website. And then use data. Data is so easy to access now. It's easy to benchmark you. If you're working with somebody like Bright, you can be asking what good looks like, especially for particular platforms, what works on one platform and what looks good on one platform and what achieves something on one platform compared to another one is completely different. So you need to be considering who you're targeting and what platform you're using and so on and so forth, and then benchmarking that data to make sure that you're on track. So just put a little bit of an order to some of these things. So define your target audience, research through literally asking them what their preferences are, choose the right channels based on that, craft compelling content that's relevant to those people, and you'll have knowledge of what that compelling content means because you would have spoken to them. Use targeted advertising, so that doesn't just mean digital, but do consider every different media option out there. And then personalize your messaging for them so they instantly know when they see it that it's for them. And then use data to regularly adjust. We regularly adjust the targeting that we have, whether it's Google, Facebook, whatever it might be. We regularly adjust it because by doing that, you've got the information there. You might as well be using it. By doing that, you get a significantly higher click-through rate, and typically our click-through rate's about 30% higher than those people that have just started working with us and what they were getting before working with Bright. And I think a lot of that comes down to using the knowledge and the data that we already have for campaigns, but also just once we set up a campaign, it doesn't mean that you can just leave it there. You've got to refine that using the data that you have. Does anybody have any questions about reaching the right target audience? Perfect. So I think once you've invested all this time into your target audience, you've got a wider brand reach. It's really difficult sometimes just to sustain that level of inquiry and registration and sales, whatever it might be that you do. So the best tips that I really have about this is to be prompt and to be personalized. I think that every time somebody contacts you, make sure you've got a process in place to maybe automatically notify them that you've got their communication. Personalize the communication to show that you're writing back something a little bit more bespoke when you get time to actually look at it. So maybe reflect back to them something that they've said in their message. This can make a massive difference to their engagement level, but also in my experience, it gives you a bit of leeway that if anything goes wrong, they know that they're dealing with a person. It's not just a process that's broken or a system that's broken. They know they're dealing with a person. If you can't convert those people, and typically we would talk about conversions within 2 weeks of them seeing your content and engaging with it or contacting you, the best way to convert those people along the line is to use a CRM, so a customer relationship management system, and track the track the engagement that you have. So it might be that, okay, after 2 weeks, when you haven't been able to convert them, you send them an email to ask them for feedback on their experience. Then a week after that, you might send them a video about what you do, or you might send them a link to a blog or something of value add. So it might be a guide to managing exam stress, or it might be a checklist for when they go into look around the nursery of what good looks like and what bad looks like. Could be a range of things. At the beginning, as long as it's relevant to your target audience, it doesn't really matter, because at the beginning you're going to be looking at the engagement of each of those emails within the CRM, and you're going to be adjusting it. And then look at engagement through content marketing. Share relevant and engaging content. I've seen a massive drop in people sharing good quality blog posts and good quality newsletters. I think in part this comes down to AI and people just creating vast quantities of content that's completely irrelevant to their target audience. And I think this actually offers a massive opportunity here. So create content by yourself. Try and avoid using AI. AI is just reiterating what's already out there on the internet. And by creating content from scratch, you're going to do much, much better. And then have regular updates. So this is actually, I think, one of the hardest elements to do, because you're short of time. And in my experience in marketing, it's very easy for people to maybe have a month where they push a particular platform, or they try something new, but then very quickly the energy and the focus on that gets shifted because something new comes along, or a problem comes up, or maybe there's a gap in the level of traffic that comes to you, or there's an external challenge that you hadn't expected, whatever it might be. But do have a plan so that you can make sure it's consistent. It's better to have less but more consistently than to have a high quantity of things, maybe spread out over a couple of weeks and then nothing. And then while you're doing all of this, you need to be building. You need to be building a bit of community here. So that might be a newsletter. It might be for people to be able to register so they get alerts if you have a discount, for example. It might be for people to be able to get alerts when you're running an event or a workshop or a seminar or something of value add. Whatever it might be, build a bit of a community here so that you can be contacting those people, because you might not have converted them into a registration at that point. They might have just inquired initially and that's it. But you can get them to come back to you through these community engagement tools, so that they're not wasted. And not only is that a good way to maintain a high level of inquiries, because those people might come back and might ask new questions, whatever it might be. It's also a good way to get a good amount of return on investment from your marketing. And then a strong online presence. The more you do online, the higher your SEO ranking is going to be, the more people are going to engage with you. Use the platforms that you have to engage with people, interact with people. If people are commenting on your content, people are sharing it, engage with those people. Don't just allow it to peter out. By engaging with that content, you'll help to boost its value on whatever platform it might be. So Meta, for example, and then that will be encouraging the algorithms to show it to new people. And you'll be getting an increased number of inquiries from that, because you'll be increasing the value of that content and the reach of that content. Make sure that you follow up with people. Typically, we see that there's a kind of a 2-week window where the vast majority of inquiries are converted. But we do see that a lot of people then stop engaging with those people. Just because they've inquired, just because they've interacted with something, downloaded something, doesn't mean that they're in a position to register or purchase whatever it might be that you're marketing to them. So do make sure that you contact those people regularly. It might be that that's once a month after your initial month or two, but make sure it's regular. And if you've collected relevant information, so for example, the age of their their child or children, tailor communication so it's relevant to them. So for example, if you're a nursery, you could be targeting them with information for babies or toddlers, depending on the age of their children. I've seen ambassador programs work quite well. I think that this can be quite a detailed thing, so just put a bit of a note here, but involve current students and parents in engaging with prospective families. You could do that in a very simple way, encouraging them to engage with content online, or you could be doing that in a more detailed way, in terms of getting them actually physically involved in some of these things. So I've seen nurseries, for example, where they've had open days and fun days, where prospective families can come along, but they've also invited current families so that people can ask them what it's like, so their children get a free fun day, whatever it might be, they get activities for free, and that can work quite well. But there is somewhere in the middle here, and I think that's kind of personal stories and experiences that's shared with your with the community that you're building online or in your CRM or in your newsletter. So share videos, share quotes and tips and tricks from current customers or parents, so that you can be you can come across as more honest, to be perfectly honest. And then to those people that you have already engaged with at some point, you could be getting them back into that inquiry pipeline by offering them exclusive information or exclusive opportunities. So if somebody has previously inquired with you, or somebody has previously contacted you, you could be inviting them to some of those special events. You could be having some of those closed events that are you're just inviting those people who are current customers or have recently inquired, and that will help you sustain that level of engagement with them, and therefore that level of inquiry and that level of registrations. And all of this is great, but if you're not getting feedback and you're not improving it, you won't be knowing what's working, what's being received well, and what's not. So ask for feedback. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask your managers to talk to people. Don't be afraid to even ask the people sharing around your school or your nursery or whoever it might be, to gather as much feedback as possible. Otherwise, you'll really struggle to improve things. Does anybody have any questions about any of those points for sustaining inquiries? Perfect. So all of this is brilliant. Hopefully they're all things that if you did all of them, I'm confident that you would be really successful. But there's one element I think underpins all of this that is really relevant, and that's having a strong brand. It might be that your current brand has a negative reputation. It might be that your current brand comes across as weak. It's got a poor first impression, whatever it might be. So you can be doing all of the other things really, really well, but you will be struggling if your brand isn't strong enough to compete with your competition, isn't strong enough to be engaging with people. And it's really important that the positive things that you do have within your branding, you utilize them as best as possible. And the way to do that is to leverage things like social media platforms. This is a great way that when you're shifting your brand reputation, you can be talking about the things that you want to improve. And for me, that's typically values. I think that it's not necessarily that our clients need to improve values. It's just that they don't necessarily repeat the same messaging. So it might be that you're an independent school and you've got a genuine sense of community. It's no longer good enough just to kind of mention that once or twice. To build a strong brand based on having a great community, it means regularly posting content about what community means, real life examples, using the word community, so that when people come back to your content, maybe on the 4th or the 5th viewing, they associate your brand with community, or they associate your brand with academic achievement, or they associate your brand with safety or quality, whatever it might be. And then content marketing and SEO, the same thing applies here. I think that take some of those things that you're you're updating for your brand, and that is branding is something that we're able to help with. So do let me know if you need some help with that. Take some of those elements and weave it into your content marketing and weave it into your SEO. So if you're targeting people who, for example, are looking for academic achievement and you're particularly great at that, target the keywords that those people are searching for about academic achievement. And you can do that by researching the keywords for that, and then including those keywords in blogs and metadata, comments, everything that you do. To get this across in an open and honest way, you're going to need testimonials, you're going to need videos, you're going to need quotes from people, you're going to need infographics, you're going to need engaging content, because it's not good enough just to repeat the message in one format, sadly. You've got to do it in multiple formats. So whichever way people like to engage with your brand, the same messaging is coming across. And then getting your brand out there, it's really important that you highlight your achievements, you highlight the things that you've done really well. It might be a particular length of time that you've been in existence as an organization or a business. You can be promoting these within press releases. You could be talking to journalists, you could be building up relationships with journalists. You could be participating in interviews or blogs or the podcasts that so many people seem to be doing at the moment. You can be engaging with these things to get your brand out there. These are really difficult things to do. I'd probably recommend that you start with social media, move on to the SEO elements, and then finally look at this media outreach part. But the only exception I would have there is if you think that there's reputational damage that's been done to your brand, then you need to be highlighting that through PR rather than through your content and social media. And then I think this is hopefully one of the happier ones from my point of view. I think that as a sector, the education sector doesn't do this enough, but really highlight your achievements and your innovations, the things that you're doing differently. Collaborate with media publishers or whoever it might be to get your story out there. I think nearly everybody that we've worked with has got some amazing achievements that they could be talking about. So keep an eye out for those things. And then when you have them, maximize their use by sharing it consistently for about 6 weeks would be optimum. Engage with community and industry partners. So it might be you're particularly good at STEM as a school. You could be engaging with people like the Institute of Engineering Technology to promote your brand out. You could be helping them with free content, for example, and they could be helping you by promoting your brand out. So thank you for the comment. I think that the thing that's really difficult here is that a lot of these things they do take time. And 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I think actually the education sector was sadly in quite a bit better place in terms of, although there were a lot of struggles, I think that there was a bit more time. I think that people have very limited time now to focus on, and very limited budgets, as you say in your comment, to focus on improvement. It's typically, what did we do last year? What worked well? What didn't work well? Let's get rid of the bits that didn't work well, and let's keep the things that did work really well. And ideally, you would be trialing things. You'd be trialing content. You'd be running surveys to understand your brand identity and so on and so forth. I think that the best thing that you could do is a bit of an audit, really, a bit of benchmarking. That would be if I was really limited, really limited on time. That's where I would start. I would benchmark my marketing and I would audit my marketing to understand where the weaknesses were. And I would pick one area and I would just focus on improving that area until I had reached my SMART goal, whatever that might be in terms of measurable success, and then I'd move on to the next thing. And I'll do that for a number of reasons, but the main reason would be that it would remove a lot of the pressure for me from having all of these millions of things that I could be doing. And I would be very happy to talk you through the process of auditing and benchmarking and how you could do that in a fairly quick and easy way, so that the time that you have as a one-person operation is best spent on marketing, basically, and an improvement. But I do think that picking some areas for improvement each year is really, really important. Whereas you could be doing the same thing that you're doing 4 or 5 years ago in 2025, for example. I hope that helps. So thank you for your comment. I think that awards and certifications are really important. I think if you get recognized by a third party, even if it is a publication, a marketing publication, it still looks great on your website. It still looks something that you should be sharing out on social media, for example. And then finally, although we've talked a lot about testimonials, we haven't really talked about case studies. Put out there case studies, put out there people who maybe brought their child to your school, for example, your nursery, and talk about the progress that they've made, and how did you as an organization make that improvement? What did you add in terms of value? Perhaps it was maybe a shift away from academic achievement, and it was more of a focus on a holistic approach to education, because these are the things that people will read. They're a lot more believable, especially if they've got testimonials from the parent in there or the customer in there, and I see them very, very rarely. I think that people very rarely share case studies. It's much more common in other sectors, but it's a very effective way of promoting success stories out to people. So thank you all very much for listening to me talking for 40 minutes. I appreciate that on a Monday morning. It's a lot to take in. I'm going to share the recording. Do feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. But does anybody have any questions now that I might be able to help with? Brilliant. As I say, do email me if you need any help. Do email me if you go away and you think you're not sure how to apply it to your organization, and I'd be very happy to help. But thank you all once again for attending.